Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our advisor workshop. I thank you all for taking some time out of your afternoon to spend here with Marilyn. I would like to take a second just to introduce Marilyn to you all today. Marilyn is joining us from Counseling and Testing Services, and she is going to be providing a workshop today on supporting the mental health of our students. For many of you, your faculty, staff, organization advisors, and so much more with students. And so we just wanted to provide this space for you all to not only watch the presentation, but to ask any questions you may have. If you do have any questions or anything, please feel free to put something in the chat or unmute during the discussion portion. I'll be monitoring the chat as best as I can in case anything comes up, but I will go ahead and turn it over to Marilyn. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you. Well, welcome. We're glad you're all here. She said, I'm Marilyn Parrish. I am a counselor and I'm the Associate Director for Faculty and Staff Training, Counseling and Testing Services here on campus. And so we mainly support our students here with their mental health issues, but as the Director over Faculty and Staff Training, I'm also here to support you. So hopefully this will be helpful for you, and anything else that I can provide to help you along. That's my role, so I'm happy to do that. So yes, like Amanda said, we're going to talk about supporting the mental health of our students, and specifically the students that you work with student awards. So I just wanted to start with, see if this is going to work. There, go back. All right, so we're going to start with just an overall look at the mental health of college students in general, and then maybe identify some signs of a student that needs extra support. And as we do that, we can look at the unique needs of high achieving students, which most often are those that are very involved and that you may see a lot on campus, but may not show that they're struggling. So that's a unique challenge. And then also how to communicate with a student in distress, and then how and where to refer a student that may need some extra assistance. But as we go through, if you have other questions, other topics that pique your interest as we are discussing this, please put questions in the chat, and we'll answer those as we go through, as well as your own comments, because I know you have valuable experience as well. So I wanted to just start opening it up with, what issues do you see that our students are struggling with as you interact with students? What kind of mental health, emotional health, stress, what do you see are things that our students are dealing with? You want to put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself.
I'll say that I see a lot of stress caused by having so much on the plate, whether it's work, student organizations, academics, family stresses, and everything like that. So that is a lot of anxiety and feeling overwhelmed with all these multiple roles and demands that students are facing. I see that too, and I think a lot of that comes with our population of students. A lot of them are working as well as going to school. They want to be involved, and so they are juggling a lot of things. Any others? So you mentioned anxiety. Any other mental health concerns that we see a lot of? I'll go through some of the ones I thought of. If you think of more, let me know. So why is it important that we talk about these things? I just put some figures up here, some common concerns with mental health. More than 80% of college students reported that they feel overwhelmed by all they had to do. That's what you brought up, Amanda. 64% of young adults who are no longer in college, they say that it was due to a mental health related concern. So obviously that shows us we need to help them with those things to keep them in college. And then depression and anxiety were ranked as the top impediment to success in college. As far as like more serious mental health issues, 75% of mental health issues
come out before someone reaches 24. And so we know that this is the age when all these transitions are happening, that a lot of times, our students may face a mental health concern for the first time, or it might be the first time they've gotten help for something that they've been dealing with. 1 in 4 18 to 24-year-olds will have a diagnosable mental health condition. And so if you think of the students that you work with, 25% of them may have something that's a bit serious enough to actually be diagnosable. And again, anxiety and depression are the most common for the students that we see that come in for counseling as well. Suicide prevention, just to mention the elephant in the room, we do have such a high percentage of our students that are dealing with thoughts of suicide, but it is the second leading cause of death for people in this age group. And then over 16% of college students reported seriously considering suicide, which means they had a plan, intent, more than that may have had some thoughts. But so you can see it's important that we address some of these things and that we kind of have it on our radar, right? We're dealing with a lot of other things, but under the surface, we're all trying to keep ourselves healthy mentally and emotionally. And a lot of times our students may not know how to do that. So we need to help them navigate that. These are just some figures of students that reported in the last 12 months they had struggled with these things. So you can see it's very high for overwhelming anxiety, feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. Those were the highest. But even more than just their academics, feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and anxious or angry, like those were high, or so depressed it was difficult to function. Half of the students reported that. And then this is just another slide that shows if it impacted their academic performance, and which of those things actually had such an impact. Anxiety, stress, sleep difficulties, depression were the highest again, but a lot of other things too. So it's important for academic success, but also for even just being able to function. And many of our students are seeking help. Why do you think that a lot of students may not come to the college counseling center, for example, or ask an advisor for help?
I think seeking help for mental health concerns is still something that's really stigmatized. And even for students, like if they've already themselves started to deconstruct some of their beliefs about helping or seeking help, they're like, oh yeah, like I encourage my friends to go do it, but I'm still like afraid to do it because of their own perceptions of themselves or the perceptions that they think their family members or other people will have.
Right, right.
We also have someone in the chat share that they may not know the resources that are available, or they might be overwhelmed about how to fit it into their schedule.
Right. And that's what, so Active Minds did a study, and they actually found these top 3 were the main reasons students gave for not seeking help, that they were too busy with school, not knowing where to go, and again, too overwhelmed to find the resources, and then feeling that others may need the resources more. It's not that bad yet, kind of a thing. And so that was interesting to hear from college students. But like you said, stigma is when they've done other studies is the main reason that students don't seek help. A lot of that stigma may come from parents or communities back home. And so we do see a lot of students that come in for counseling, but they're like, my parents don't know I'm here. My parents wouldn't want me to seek counseling. And so a lot of our students are overcoming that stigma and are reaching out for help if they can just get their foot in the door, right? 40% of students with mental health conditions do not seek help, which that's a lot. So we really just want to help identify our students that are struggling and help them find or know what resources are there. As well as 57% didn't request accommodations when they could have. And we can help students get accommodations for anxiety or for depression. for test anxiety, for example. And, you know, that has been such a big help for a lot of our students to know that's possible and that it's legitimate, that our professors take it seriously, just as if I had, you know, a health condition or a, you know, a visible disability. I like this slide because it kind of shows what we see when we see our students that are doing well. They're high functioning, they're outgoing, they're doing well in school, they're serving in clubs, they're usually doing multiple things and seem to have it all together, right? They're high achieving, helpful, calm, loyal, responsible, passionate about their purpose and the things that they're going to do in their life. And so these are all strengths that we see, but usually these strengths come with some other things down below the surface that we may not realize are going on, such as overthinking, perfectionism, a fear of failing or letting someone down, needing reassurance, really high standards for ourselves, more than we would ever expect of someone else, right? And because of that, procrastinating, this seems so hard, or I have to get straight A's, so that stresses me out so much, I'm gonna procrastinate till the last minute because I don't want to think about it. Also expecting the worst. When we're overthinking, we're planning for that worst thing that might happen, so I can have a plan and be prepared and take care of all of the pieces that might be falling, right? And so a lot of times they're not enjoying the moment because they're so overcommitted or they're so hard on themselves, and it leads to burnout. It leads to feeling resentful of their friends who can just blow off an exam and go out and party, or resentful of parents who may have expectations of them, or, you know, there's a lot of other things going on. And so providing a space for students to talk about some of these things will be so helpful. Because a lot of times we're, you know, students that are high achieving are putting on the face that everything's great and feel like they have to do that. But really, to have support, it needs to be from someone who understands, deep down, I struggle too, right? So that's good to keep in mind as well. Here's just some other attributes of high functioning students. Which of these do you see or do you relate to or see that could become an issue for students?
I mean, the first one.
Saying yes.
Saying yes to every obligation.
Yes. A lot of times I have to teach my clients that it's okay to say no sometimes. And when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to some other things that might mean more to you. So it's so important to identify what's most important to you and to be able to say, I can't say yes to that because this is taking priority right now. All right. Any others? I noticed this one, proving your worth through achievement. This is how I got validated growing up, getting good grades or doing extra. Teachers noticed me, right? And so a lot of times our worth is tied up in our grades, our, you know, success. And so if we ever have a mistake or fail, it's devastating, right? That can be really good to take stock of. Also, not taking time out for themselves. That it's okay to take a new day to do some self-care or to say that I need a break. Maybe you deserve that. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. It causes so much stress. So here's just some signs and symptoms of stress. A lot of these overlap with depression or anxiety, but we all recognize these, right? When I'm super stressed out, I have a hard time remembering everything. Things fall through the cracks. It's hard to concentrate. We all have like certain tells, our own stress warning signs. Some people can't fall asleep because their mind's going, or some people eat more or less. Yeah, do you have any that you know tell you you're stressed out? a little too far.
Yeah, they go to sleep.
Okay, being able to fall asleep. Our bodies tell us.
I think I fall into the eating more or less a lot, because I'll skip lunch or I'll, procrastinate on having dinner because I'm trying to do something else. And then by the time I'm eating, I'm so hungry.
Right, right. We ignore our own needs to get things done, right? Yeah, I know I get a little switch. That's kind of my tell, or I dream about work, you know. So there's things that tell us that, you know, we are stressed. And so you may notice some of these things, or a student might be getting sick a lot, or they might not show up because they say they have stomach ache, and it happens a lot, you know, or migraines, right? Those are good signs that you're probably under a lot of stress. There's something else going on. Let's see if we can get you some help. These are a lot of the stressors that students might be facing, you know, in addition to like normal work and school. They're also learning how to be an adult. You know, they're having a lot of expectations on them, you know, for student works. They're in charge of inviting and making flyers or making plans, as well as navigating friend drama and dating drama and, you know, jobs, internships. There's like so many things that add to that stress, like you were saying earlier. So I think it's helpful to like have a list like this, even like giving a list like this to a student, saying, which one of these are you dealing with, right? And like, when they check them all off, it's kind of validating. I'm like, yeah, no wonder I, you know, get sick a lot, or I'm getting headaches, or whatever it is. And some of those internal things are stresses as well that add to that like self-criticism, fears and insecurities, that identity formation, you know, questions of like, what are my values, or who am I? What do I want to do with my life? All of those things add to that stress. It is a continuum. So we all need some stress, right? And so I like this diagram to kind of show like, when we have just a little stress or enough stress, it keeps us motivated, gives us a sense of purpose. We can get things done. We feel proud of our work when we do. It may lead us to feel tired, right? We may start to look for ways to cope with this stress, right? But when we're over here, we can resolve it, we can deal with it, and then we feel better. We get a relief, right? The problem comes when we go from one stressful thing to another, and we never get out of that stress cycle, right? Where our body's pumping the stress chemicals through our body. Our brain is pumping through our body. So when we have chronic stress, then we don't get a break. And it leads to feeling irritable, resentful. I can't concentrate. I'm just always tired. Or I tend to isolate myself if I just don't have the energy to deal with people or any more demands, right? You're talking to me, processing what you're saying. That's one more thing I don't have the energy for, right? So I'm just gonna pull up in my room. So some of those signs when we were talking about stress, that's really chronic stress, when it's getting to be too much. And so we may need to learn, or help our students learn, how to really take a break. You know, it takes 72 hours for those stress chemicals to get dissipated throughout our body. So if we've had an exam, right, why am I still feeling so stressed out? Like it's over, right? But it takes 3 days to really come down from that and be back at optimal functioning. And so if I go from one exam to the next, to this project, to this assignment, and I never actually get back to normal functioning. So I may need to learn to plan my time. I may need to learn, oh, if I exercise and drink water and do something creative, I can dispel that stress, you know, feeling a lot more quickly. And so some of those coping skills are things that we can just learn. You know, what do I need? What works for me? And it's okay for me to notice, how am I feeling? Which is my favorite. How am I feeling? What do I need? And what can I do to take care of myself right now? Asking yourself those questions. If we never get a break from that chronic stress, it leads to burnout, which is just like, we're done. We no longer enjoy things we used to love to do. And this is usually when students come and seek help, right? Nothing else is working. I can't show up to class, or I can't, my relationships are not positive anymore. Relationships suffer, our grades are suffering. Maybe we're turning to substances or food or too much of something to cope. Because I don't know what else to do, right? And so that's signs of burnout, and that means we need some extra help. We need an intervention, kind of, right? And so we would hope we don't wait until we're at that point to seek for services or help. But if we do, there's things that we can do to help, but that tends to be where we lose them, and they drop out of school, or they need a break from school, right? So the sooner we can intervene on that continuum, the better, right?
Can I?
Yeah.
It's exactly, one of the things, though, you'll hear the students say is, I have to finish by this semester.
Right.
One part of it is just self-imposed, I'm failing if I don't. Or my parents are gonna be upset that I'm delaying graduation for a year,
Mhm.
and they're not able to be objective, like you would be, to say, okay, I'm looking at all, it's not in your best interest to finish this semester. You're not going to
Yeah.
finish. You need to take a break and try to get them to see that objectively.
Mhm.
That's what I hear all the time. I have to finish.
I have to. I hear that too.
I'm 24. I've already been in college 6 years. I've got to finish this. My life is over.
Right. Right. And some of the most healthy students that I've seen are ones that can say, you know, everyone has their own journey, their own path through school, and this is mine. And I found that I do better if I take 8 credits a semester and work, and that's what works for me. And that is so much better than the burnout point, right? So I may graduate, but I'm not even gonna be able to do my best in a job, right? And it is okay to take a break if we do that. Definitely. So we kind of talked about like some warning signs, but how do you think we can identify a student in distress? Like when you think about students you've worked with, what do you see that catches your attention? Or that you wish you would have noticed?
Take your time. Oh, so you should. Not meeting deadlines as usual, as per usual, or participating or not participating as much.
Yeah.
I think not taking the time to check in and just kind of going straight to the business of it and like forgetting that check-in portion, can like limit your ability to identify, that if you are just like, okay, so what did you accomplish this week? If you're saying like, oh, class is going right.
Yeah. So giving them the opportunity to check in. Yeah. And then when there's a change in how someone responds, that this isn't like you, that's definitely something to pay attention to. And it gives you the perfect segue, right? If I've noticed that, you know, you haven't been coming as often, or you haven't responded to my emails, I'm concerned, you know, what's going on for you? Is there something I can do to help? What issues do we feel unprepared to handle? Are there anything that you're like, oh, I hope they don't say this, or if this came up, I don't know what I would do? Anything in particular?
If they start to talk about some sort of sexual relations with somebody else, they don't want to.
Don't want to hear about that. Okay.
That's outside of my purview.
Yeah. And you can say that. Like, okay, that's not really something that I could discuss with you. Maybe it'd be helpful to talk to a professional, a mental professional.
Students will tell you almost anything.
They will. Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that's awkward depending on the relationship, right?
Yeah, because if they tell you the stress is from their other people in their life,
Yeah.
they just really have no control over, you know, they don't get along with a parent or sibling, somebody.
And it's not something we can fix, right? That's a lot of our hesitancy, I think sometimes is like, okay, you can tell me all your problems, but now what do I do? Right? And I'll tell you, your job is not to fix it, right? And your job is not even to counsel them, right? Our job is just to help them. Find resources and identify, okay, you sound like you need some help. Let me tell you about these resources. And I'm here to support you. That's really hard. I can validate that, right? Here's some indicators, some signs that you could watch for, deterioration in the quality of their work, missing assignments, poor attendance, maybe inappropriate behavior, like reacting in class or in meetings, physical and behavioral signs, a change in anything, hygiene, friendships, withdrawing, eating, weight loss or gain, they're obviously exhausted, excessive anxiety, irritability, their moods changing, or they're talking about all those stressors, like you were saying, or they just feel hopeless. Sometimes we'll get these other red flags, like someone else expresses concern. Hey, I'm worried about so-and-so, right? Or maybe you notice some self-injury, or somebody's just telling you something's wrong, right? Listen to your gut, just check in with someone. Anytime there's any violent language references to death or, not being here anymore, we want to pay attention to those, obviously, giving away personal possessions. Those are all signs that someone may have thoughts of death or dying or suicide. And they may need an outlet of somebody to talk to about that, right? And so we don't want to ignore that, even if it's on social media or, a joke, we still want to pay attention to those things. So I wanted to go through specifically depression and anxiety. So these are common mental health concerns for our students. So a lot of these signs are ones we noted where we said were tied to a lot of stress, right? So it's okay if we don't know, are you depressed? Are you stressed? Are you grieving? Are you just sad because you got broken up with? It's okay if you don't know why, but just being able to watch that, oh, you're crying a lot, you seem withdrawn, you seem like you're not enjoying our meetings anymore. Like, those are all signs that maybe it'd be helpful to talk to someone. You don't have to say, you could have depression, but it could be. And so just knowing what to watch for is helpful. And then with anxiety, constant worrying and overthinking, I think is something that you'll see a lot, especially with those students that we said are high achieving, perfectionist. They are constantly planning for every eventuality so they can be successful, right? That makes its toll, really does. And so anxiety is very common when they have panic attacks or just all of these physical symptoms of anxiety. And it can be very hard to concentrate and to deal with added stress and responsibilities when I'm on edge, my heart's beating fast, my mouth is dry, I have all this restless energy, all of these things. Anxiety is another added layer, I would say, when you're always.
How do you know students deal with it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's study this, and one of the big factors is social media.
Yes.
I think most professors, hopefully tell students not to use the phone in class. Obviously, that's not conducive to learning the material in the class.
Yeah.
But I won't let them use it, but still up to the minute of class.
Yeah. They're not talking and offering support to each other. Yeah. They're not making.
And I think a lot of that probably just is a stressor.
Yeah.
With all that phones right up to the minute of classes, there's something else that bothers them. They look at. I don't know how many of those things are peaceful and calming things that are on the phone. And I've got to try to give them to say, okay, stop, let's gear up for what's going to be in the class, read the material, turn your phones off.
Yeah.
And focus.
Yeah.
And we know that the problems have this dopamine effect, and you just keep dragged into it, clickbait, on and on and on.
It's constant stimulation, constant decision to make with where do I go, how do I post?
I was driving in here. Students walking across the crosswalk. Never looks up from the phone.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes some driver might be distracted, you know. You should be looking when you're crossing and thinking, okay, your parents taught you this, I'm pretty sure at some point, not to walk across the crosswalk, looking at your phone all the time.
Oh. And a lot of the reason that they are looking at their phone is to distract themselves from all the things going on in their head and all the worries, right? And I heard this saying today, when we're distracting, it leads to reacting, right? We have to really be engaged and mindful in order to be fully present and make good choices and, you know, enjoy life. So it's kind of this vicious circle. Looking at my phone makes me more anxious or depressed, and then when I'm feeling that way, I want to look at my phone, and it's really hard to break that cycle. It takes some action, finding some other things that help, that are coping skills that don't hit screen, right? And it's like, okay, just take 10 minutes and draw, or listen to your music and lay on your bed, or, you know, just sit in the square and look at the birds, right? Like, it can still be passive, but it doesn't have to be on your phone. You said, how do we help students? This is specifically if someone's having a panic attack in the middle of, they call breakdowns, right? They may show some of these symptoms, but some students really are good at hiding it, and it's just all going on in their head, behind their eyes. Some students will just break into tears, but inside they're sweating, they're dizzy, their heart's beating fast, they just feel like they can't breathe. Sometimes trembling, feeling dizzy, or chest pain, nausea, chills. It's different for everyone. They may have one or all of these symptoms, but the key is they're not able to stop it. It feels really scary, right? And so these are just some things that you can do to help someone who's kind of at that point. Help them refocus their attention. They can look in my eyes, you know, let's take some deep breaths, talking soothingly to them, and you being in regulating your emotions will help them calm down faster. If it's in class or in a meeting, I know I've said, you know, would you like to go get a drink, right? And they may not be able to talk, but they can usually nod or tell you yes or no, right? If they want to get a drink, or sitting on the floor helps them feel more steady. Reminding them, you know, seems like you're really upset right now, this might be a panic attack, you know, like, it's okay, it's gonna pass. Maybe going for a walk. I had a friend who needed to just pace and clap, like she had to like get that energy out until it subsided. So usually if someone's at that point, it's just reassuring them and not freaking out yourself. Like, I don't know what to do with this, right? So that's one thing with anxiety attacks. Kind of PTSD is another thing. If someone's been through traumatic experience in their life, and who hasn't, right? But they may have some of these symptoms of PTSD, which really leads to being on guard all the time, or when that's triggered. And so we're in that fight or flight mode. And so it's very hard to concentrate. But it's just good to remember 85% have experienced trauma by the time they reach college. So it's just good to like have in the back of your mind, this student may have been through something really hard. And instead of asking what's wrong with you, you can ask what's happened to you, right? What made this so hard? Communicating with someone that's in distress, it can be tricky because are they really listening? Am I saying the right thing, right? And kind of have some doubts or some concerns. A lot of times there's fear. Am I going to say the right thing? Are they gonna say something that I don't know how to handle? Maybe we're so busy. Sometimes that can hold us back from asking how students are because we gotta get this done. Or I've got another appointment right after this, right? Sometimes I hear that I don't have the skills to deal with that. I'm not trained for that, right? Or it's unscheduled, it's unexpected, and I'm dealing with my own stuff. I'm stressed out too. So sometimes these things keep us from asking about how the student's doing or intervening, as well as assumptions. You know, I'm assuming they seem fine. They're doing okay, so why would I check in on them? I didn't know they were dealing with this. So part of that is even just letting your students that you work with know, I'm always here for you. I know that you're probably dealing with stuff that we're not talking about, but if you ever need someone to talk to, you can come to me. Or if you need to know what resources there are, I just had this training and I have some information for you. Any other barriers or things that hold you back? Yeah, it's pretty normal that we all deal with these things. But the most important is you're just expressing your concern. You want to ask open-ended questions. You know, what's going on for you? How's school going, right? And then listen. And like you were saying, they're going to tell you a story. They're going to tell you all the things they're dealing with, especially if they're overwhelmed. It feels good to unload it all, right? We don't have to fix it. We can just listen and be there for them. And in fact, if we have advice, it also is helpful to ask permission to say, would you like to hear some advice or would you like to hear some thoughts I have? Because maybe they just want you to listen. They don't want you to tell them what to do. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. Well, then if you just showed up to class, you know, this would be a little better. Or oh, if you talk to your professor, right? They know this. So, what they really need is just support and someone to listen. Having a non-judgmental attitude, and clear boundaries, like you were saying, there's certain things, we're probably not gonna talk about that, right? You don't have to tell me all the details. Or that's not my role as your advisor or as a professor, like I really can't do X, Y, or Z. Even as a counselor, like some students, I'd love to just take them home with me, right? And take care of fixing all their problems, but we can't do that. So we do have to have clear boundaries, leave aside personal biases, and then, of course, having awareness of what resources and referrals are there. That's so important. And I always tell students, if you're dealing with something, there is an office on campus to help with that. So let's find it, right? And if there isn't one, they'll come up with one. So, you know, these are just some guides, but the main thing that I like to remind everyone is that it's kind of like a balance scale, you know, and on this side, we have all the pain they're going through, their stress, their challenges, maybe what trauma they've been through, the relationship issues they're coming with, maybe some unhealthy coping skills that are making things worse, right? And it's weighing them down. And we can't do much about those things, but we can balance the scale out a little bit by offering some resources, some support, some referrals. And once they can connect with some helping professionals, they develop that resilience of like, wow, I've got through that. Helping to remind them of their strengths that you see. How have you handled things like that in the past, right? Reminding them of those things. And then having positive beliefs about themselves and other people are there to support you. And the world isn't such a scary place, right? Like these are the things that help balance that scale out. And so usually there's some things we can do to offer some hope and help them cope on this side. And that's our job. And to me, that seems more doable than, you know, having to fix, than feeling a bit like a failure and they just failed the class and you know, fix that, right? But let's connect you with the dean of students, or let's, you know, see what other resources there are on campus.
I think one of the hard things for me personally is, trying to emphasize, but other parts of me say, you have to try hard. And so still come in, I'd like help. Okay. I didn't come to class, and I've actually reported my life. I asked, have you looked at the report? No.
Okay.
But I just want you to show, well, that's pretty natural to be frustrated with a student like that. Now, obviously, a problem, but to not put in any effort, before they come for help,
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
Right, right.
So, how do you deal with that as a professor? And at some point, you have to just draw a line, have a student come in and say, missed the first test, never communicated with me. And we had a conversation. I said I didn't know it. She wasn't coming by for it. Didn't know we had a test. I said, have you read the syllabus? No. 1/3 through the semester. So what do you do there? That's when I don't think it's only, to say, look, not really.
Yeah.
Probably whatever the problem is, you probably shouldn't be in school right now.
Yeah.
You can't do any work when you really should be.
So you have to be clear about those things. And I think it's okay to say, wow, it seems like you're going through a lot. Well, once you have watched the lecture and done X, Y, and Z, come back and I'll see if I can help you, and would you like me to do a report to the student care team? They might be able to help you with your options at this point in the semester, right? You're right. There's really not a lot you can do when they're not willing to put in the work. But they're like, when we look back at these signs and symptoms, there's probably more going on that explains why they didn't come to class. But that doesn't mean you have to pass them in the class, right? There's natural consequences that they're still going to have to deal with. So we can empathize and acknowledge their concerns. I see you really want to pass this class, but still be clear of this is what it would take, right? And these are the people who could help you. And so that's where refer comes in. And then the last one is self-check. Like, okay, how am I feeling about this? I'm really frustrated with this student, and I feel like I'm judging that they should have, could have, would have, right? And I'm irritated that they're expecting me to do something about that. So what do I need right now? Right? I'm not going to beat up on myself. I'm going to take care of myself. So checking in with yourself and then seeking, maybe talk to another professor or colleague, someone else who you can bounce ideas off of and get, your own support too. So this is ears. Listen with your ears. Empathize, acknowledge, refer, and then self-check. So that's a good little acronym. Here's another acronym. You do want to assess for risk of suicide or harm. I mean, even if it's just like really casual, like in your mind, do I feel like this is a risk? If you do feel like that's a risk, then you want to make a referral to counseling center or dean of students, right? Listen to non-judgmentally, give reassurance and information, encourage appropriate professional help, and then encourage self-help with other support strategies of like, what have you tried so far? Okay, so you haven't tried reading the text yet. Okay, when could you do that? Or, okay, so you tried talking to this neighbor in class, like, do they have a study group? And there's things they can do on their own that will make them feel empowered, like, and that will help their mood, right? Sometimes they have those strategies and those coping skills, and sometimes they don't, and nothing's helping. Okay, well, that counselor can help you come up with or learn some things that would help. This is just a quick, kind of obvious. Don't say, we need to talk, sit down, or you're a mess and it's obvious. What's wrong with you? You need to get some therapy, right? That's kind of hard. Try just saying, things in a gentler way, in a way that you would respond well to. Our students they mentally are really not adults yet. They're getting there, but they want the respect of an adult. And so speaking to them as an adult, will get you farther, right? And being very understanding and respectful. I wonder if it'd be okay if we sit down and talk. You seem sad to me. I've noticed that you seem fill in the blank. I noticed you seeing this, or I've noticed you doing this. I've been thinking about what we can do to help you feel better, or, you know, succeed in my class, whatever it is. But always like giving them choices and offering options, that returns that responsibility to them, right? So you want to be human, show care and concern, take their concerns seriously, and then voice your concerns directly, right? And point those things out. They know what's going on, but when someone else comes to them and says, I've noticed this and I'm concerned, then I'm here to help. That can offer some hope, right? It gives them a space to really fall apart or vent or ask for help. You can ask if they're having thoughts about harming or killing themselves, especially if they've made comments about that. We have a whole other training called Campus Connect that we offer monthly that how to ask about suicide, what to do for suicide prevention.
I'll frame this, I wouldn't ask
Yeah.
that question unless they had mentioned something.
Yes, right.
I wouldn't ask it unless
Yeah.
you said something.
Right, and so a lot of times we're nervous to ask about that as well, but if they said something or there's clues to that, someone needs to ask them, right? So it could be you, or it could be, making a referral to the care team, and then they will get the help that they need. When we do the Campus Connect, we point out that majority of students this age will talk to a friend before they talk to anyone else. So usually it's a friend they're confiding in, so we want the students even to know what to do, right? And where to send their friends, how to get them help. But definitely, you can address it if you're concerned and ask that question, or make sure someone does, right? Don't cross boundaries, don't be the professional, you don't have to, you know, offer counseling. Don't say at least. At least you haven't failed completely, or at least, you know, that's really invalidating. Don't act shocked. Don't agree to keep secrets. Don't debate or argue, right? Like, none of these things are helpful. Don't assume the situation will take care of itself. That's a tempting one. Like, I'm sure they'll figure it out without my help, right? If you're wondering what to say, I like to have the words practiced beforehand, but you can just, you know, start with any of these. It sounds like, it seems as if, I hear you saying, and then fill in what they're feeling. It seems like you're feeling really alone right now because, you know, your friends all went out without you, right? Like, that's a good way to reflect what's going on. Or I get a sense that you're withdrawing from our work right now because we haven't seen you lately. And then offer to help, you know, or then open it up with, you know, tell me about that, or tell me what's going on. This is just active listening, right? Rephrasing what you're seeing or hearing, or what they're telling you. Notice that their body language, use your body language to show that you're listening. All those things that, you know, we do when we're really trying to be there for someone. So when we talk about, like, okay, where can we refer these students? These are some of the campus resources that we have. So here at Counseling and Testing, I am one of the counselors there. We can do, we have free individual, group, couples counseling, crisis counseling. So we have same day walk-in or call-in appointments available for those who really are in crisis and need to be seen that day or like the next day. We have workshops on various topics. So I do like a coping skills workshop where we can teach all of these basic skills, you know, of how do I cope with this? And then we also can offer consultations. So if you're concerned about student, you could call our number and say, hey, I have a student, I don't know how to help them. And we can walk you through what to do or get them connected. Sometimes we'll have professors call, say, I'm with a student right now, they need to be seen, can I let them talk to you, right? Hand the phone to the student. That's helpful when a student is hesitant or will probably not reach out on their own. And then we also have a case manager who can get them referrals. So say they're off their medications and they need to find a psychiatrist in Denton because theirs is back home. Okay, we have a case manager who could sit down with them, find out their insurance, help connect them with resources in the community. If they need more than our counseling center can offer, we're going to help connect them with that. So we're just a good starting place for anyone that you're concerned about. There are other counseling centers on campus. These bottom three, for example, psychology clinic, counseling and human development clinic, and UNT Well. They also will see students. They typically have like a $5 to $10 fee per session. But they usually could see them maybe weekly for longer than a semester, you know, like they could have more regular appointments. So that's the differences. Our sessions are usually every other week. But other campus resources, Dean of Students, definitely. So if you go to report.unt.edu, you can refer any student for any kind of issue. Care team specifically is if they're having mental health concerns or SOS is more like it's a financial concern, or they're pregnant and they need pregnancy resources, or survivor advocate is more for victims of abuse or violence. And then the Student Health and Wellness Center, they do medications for mental health concerns as well. So really, if you get a student to the Health and Wellness Center, Dean of Students, or counseling and testing, any of us are gonna connect them with other resources on campus. So you don't have to know all of the resources. If you can just get them to come to one of those places, we will assess them for any kind of risk to harm themselves or someone else, and we will refer to each other. As well as ODA, all three of us could help connect them with accommodations if they need that. RISE is where we have substance use education and support. If there's any kind of substance use situation, the Learning Center, obviously for academic or needing help, even with like organizing themselves, and you know, student mentors who can walk them through making a game plan to get caught up, things like that.
That's a quick question.
Yeah.
When I think it exists, when I got here in 1985, it's a paper, and you used to hand out something for freshmen for like how to succeed. It was like, you know, daily planning, you know, weekly planning and so forth, things like that, how to improve your study habits and things like that. What do they get in freshman orientation that's along that line? And then you have something where that's up on the website, you mentioned you come, I think you said you give talks on coping.
Yeah.
So those two things are kind of tied together, but what resources do they have now?
Well, I know in orientation, there are a lot of classes on various subjects and they can choose, right? So they might miss that one. But also now we have the first year, okay, Amanda, help me, what is it called? The course that they're taking now, it's 0 credits, but it really is helping them get set up for success.
And every freshman is part of it.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
And they go through slightly.
And slightly.
They get involved.
Mhm.
Like a week long.
Yeah, and so they are getting a lot of that information, but you're right, they don't always put it into practice, and then when they need it, they forgot it, they don't know where it's at. But that is one place that I have sent students, is the Learning Center, to sit down with someone up here, really, someone a little bit older than them, probably more experienced, to say, okay, let's look at habits, let's make a plan, let's see your schedule. When are you gonna do this, that, and teach them how to really organize themselves, like you're saying. It is a skill that I feel like has been lost a little bit. And these are our kids who went through COVID and missed, you know, some of their development in their middle high school years now. So,
I also think too, though, to the point we were talking about earlier, one thing that we don't do for students, especially first gen or like an archaeological archive students, is like there's like you still have to take class. You know what I mean? Like, because you have your expectations of your class, or you can put it on the syllabus. But if you're first gen, or if you know, even second gen, but your parent may have been previously removed from the institution, they don't know what the expectation is because the syllabus is given all of the high school. You know, public recommended education, really one class. So to your point too, around like help, like the student came to you, didn't watch the video, it was coming to you was to help, you know what I mean? Like, and so in their mind, like, I'm trying, yeah, but in your mind too, like, well, it was on the syllabus, right? So then there's this like weird space we exist in where like students don't know how to take classes. The faculty don't have the capacity to sit and teach students how to take the class. And so, because we're, you know, as staff, that happened a lot too. Like, hey, I'm doing, I've had students come in and be like, I didn't know I was supposed to do this thing, you know, like, did you read the syllabus? And they're like, I got confused, didn't know what to ask, so I just did that.
yeah.
Right? And it's not that they don't want to, they may not know how, or even feel comfortable sometimes. So I think that that's something that.
Well, that comes to that heading, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you know, wouldn't occur to me that a student didn't know what a syllabus was, right?
Yeah.
That would be kind of
I'm
shocking.
surprised, yeah, some students really truly would be like,
I didn't know the syllabus.
yeah, like, what the hell is this? Yeah.
Until my first freshman class. And I was
Right.
like, okay, this is something I need to know. But
Well, and I think, I mean, this isn't cure all problems, but it's a big step in the right direction. It takes away stress if you study consistently. You're not all stressed out because you didn't study for the test.
Right.
You didn't do work incrementally. On the first day of class, I showed something from a Canadian university, but basic study about memory. And it shows you that on the day one, we'll call whatever you learned in class 100%. You know, day two, if you haven't reinforced it, you're down to, let's say, 70%. Day three, you're down to 50%. By day seven, you're down to 5%.
right.
Because you never told your brain, hey, that's important. Let's stimulate it and let's get it into longer term memory. And students, they go days at a time without looking at anything that you've done. And you know, that's just a basic memory technique. If you
Yeah.
want to be a better student, that would take away stress. I try to tell them, make old fashioned flashcards. They serve the purpose of grinding through material and then you use it to practice from.
Right.
And, you know, what, like, never heard of a flashcard, you know?
Well, and they have learned survival skills through COVID and, you know, through high school probably, and they may not have learned to ever study. They just learned to study for the exam to get through, or, you know, how to cheat to get the exam done. And so, yeah, they're gonna have to learn some of these basic skills, but honestly, we have to be we can't be stressed to learn, right? So we have to be able to cope with life, to learn how to study to learn, right? So really, this is the core, the foundation is how can I take care of myself and be healthy mentally in order to learn and do well on all these things. We got together about a year ago last spring, which is an online peer support platform, because we wanted students who may not come in for counseling services to have a community of support, basically. And so this is free for all students, staff, and faculty. It's anonymous, and students can get on there and ask questions. There's mental health resources. They can create art and post it. Just it's a way to feel seen and heard, but hopefully also in a healthy space where they're going to get the right help. So yes, pass on together all. That's another option to give to students. And then last but not least, don't forget to care for yourself. It's very common for us as helpers of students to also, you know, get burnt out. and to have that compassion fatigue of I'm always giving, and I need to give to myself. Be real when it's impacting you and get support with, talk to a colleague or, use your own self-care techniques so that, you're a good role model to the students that this is what I do, right? And it's okay to feel a certain way.
You know, you can drag that over to the right a little bit in your house.
Oh, do you want me to do
You
that?
know,
That would be helpful with,
over, drag over.
we'll put it over there. Yeah, so take care of yourself, take your own advice on all of these things. That's just the last thing I'll say. And then again, I'm here to support staff and faculty. If you need referrals for yourself or for students, you can always reach out to me. And we'll make these slides available, so you'll have all these
Well,
resources.
email.
Yes, so I'll give it to Amanda, and she can email it out. If you have further questions, feel free to contact me. Any questions before we wrap up today? I appreciate your comments. It certainly helps to know, what matters to you and what experiences you have had. So appreciate your input and thanks for attending today.
I have one more question. One of the
Yeah.
things I think they've also shown is this using social media, so like particular cell phones has reduced the ability to concentrate.
Yeah.
For long periods of time. I don't know how we can reverse that or help students in that way. So get them off their phones and not have to come to work. To read something for 1 hour solid.
Right. It's a process.
And with, fortunately, letting the phone go out every 5 minutes when it peaks with something that's probably not that important.
Yeah, and I work with students, like, okay, let's set a timer for 5 minutes, right? And then you can look at your phone, and then we gradually go to 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You have to train your brain to be able to concentrate long enough, right? To do that thing, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Valid.
humans are humans across time. It's just, I grew up in a time in the 1960s. We had nothing to distract us.
You read a book?
We read a book. That was it. And there might have been a case that we watched something on TV if our parents let us, and otherwise it's just you talk with your friends, you run around and you read books. And I just don't find the students can sit and concentrate on what they tell me.
It's true.
So this is not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many stressed students in my 39 years here as I've seen in the last couple of years.
Getting worse and worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just, it's just incredible.
Yeah, well, and some of these things will help, and so if we can just get them the resources and someone they trust to guide the way, right? Hopefully we can help, at least I help that one, right? Like this message. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.